For decades, WWE had been known to miss opportunities with wrestler after wrestler, dismissing talented acts in favor of placating the whims of Vince McMahon. Now that WWE is on a creative upswing, it's time to look back on history at 10 unfortunate times when WWE dropped the ball. Hey, friendo, Steve here.
Hey, Larson.
And welcome back to Going In Raw Count Out. On today's episode, we're talking about ball drops. No, I'm not talking about the physiological act of, I'm referring to metaphorical.
Don't have to get into it.
10 times WWE dropped the ball, whether it's with storylines or wrestlers. That's what we're going to talk about. I'll be honest with you, let me take a look at this list here really quick. We could do a whole separate list on storyline ball drops. In this case, it's mainly wrestlers and that they could have done more with, but keep that one up here for another time. Lately, Larson, WWE has been on a pretty decent run when it comes with a lot of their wrestlers. Most of their wrestlers are being used in a pretty decent way. There's not a lot of them that are, for example, like this past week, Ricochet and Ciampa had a match on Main Event, but the week before they were involved in like a fatal four-way for a new number one contender for the Intercontinental Championship. And, we get that maybe Ciampa's they're waiting on Ciampa for Gargano. It seems like a lot more people are being used these days than maybe in the past.
Yeah, and I guess the real question is being utilized to their fullest. We say this all the time. The talent on the roster now is I think, without a doubt, in terms of depth, in terms of the quality of talent, the best it's ever been across the board, across all of wrestling. There's so many fantastic wrestlers out there that put in the right position, the right storyline, utilize their fullest to be massive, massive superstars, mainstream crossover stars. And as you mentioned, there's been numerous times where WWE seemingly had a massive star on their roster, and then didn't do a whole heck of a lot with them, and whether it has to do with creative ineptitude, injuries, bad luck, some combination thereof, for whatever reason, WWE seemingly dropped the ball with a lot of talent.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead and get started here, because I like to think. Look, I like to think that with Vince McMahon seemingly being maybe phased out of the day-to-day creative, maybe this is a thing of the past. And going forward, fresh minds, Triple H, the game, will try to utilize these superstars to the best of his ability. So we'll try to learn from history and talk about these. We'll start off here with number 10.
10.
Mark Jindrak. Oh, man.
The man with the greatest drop kick in the history of professional wrestling.
That is absolutely true. There are compilations of his drop kicks, and they are, my goodness gracious, this dude can hit like a legit 7-footer in the face with a drop kick. So he was originally, and in fact, they had filmed one of the Evolution vignettes, sort of like their debut vignette, with Mark Jindrak. He was supposed to be in the Batista. No, correct. Was it Batista or Randy Orton? Yes, it was the Batista,
it was Batista, right? Yeah. Yep. The original lineup for Evolution was going to be Triple H, Flair, Orton, and Jindrak. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I guess something just didn't fit Triple H's vision.
Well, according to, let me find this here. I guess they did an Evolution DVD, I think.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And according to that, it was a situation where Triple H didn't feel like Jindrak was mature enough to handle being in the group. I guess Vince was pushing for Jindrak to be in Evolution rather than Batista, because I guess Batista was dealing with some injury issues.
Yeah.
And Triple H says, all right, but I feel like this Jindrak kid may not be as mature as we want to him to be involved in this. And I guess apparently on that same, I was on the Ruthless Aggression series.
Okay.
Jindrak was interviewed. And apparently agreed with Triple H's views on things.
Oh, wow.
But it's interesting, even with seemingly Vince holding him in high enough regard to consider including him in that group. Dude is 6'6", 253, and can drop kick a person sitting on another person's shoulders.
Yeah.
He seems like from being an attraction, someone people will tune in to watch. He checks a lot of the boxes.
Well, one thing that we can do in looking at a variety of these wrestlers is look at what they did after WWE dropped the ball with them. And this one is a slam dunk because Mark Jindrak went to Mexico.
Yep.
Joined up there with I think it was it AAA? Yeah. So he was in
CMLL first, and he went back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah. So he went back and forth. His accolades include being a former CMLL World Heavyweight Champion. He was a CMLL World Trios Champion, and maybe more important, as Marco Corleone, not just the luchador, he was also a soap opera megastar. Mm-hmm. And we actually did, I think it's over the Friendo Club Wrestling channel. There's a compilation of his work, not only drop kicking people there in Mexico, but also his work on the telenovela he was on. Mm-hmm. And the guy has got he doesn't just have charisma, he's got that camera charisma that we talk about. Right. Now, if they had simply found something that worked with him, which really didn't seem to be that difficult, I think that he could have been a major star. But, big old ball drop on the part of the WWE, man.
Massive. So I'm here on Jindrak's Wikipedia page here, and it says here, I don't know what the source is, Jindrak has the highest vertical leap in WWE history. Mm-hmm. And the source is a Miami Herald article from 2010 saying that his personal best is over 42 inches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's 3.5 feet.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, maybe if he felt he was too mature to deal with being as a part of evolution, maybe he needed to do a little bit of growing up before he hit, what he needed. And, WWE, it's shark territory. You know what I mean?
It is.
And maybe he needed to leave, but the fact that they never, offered him big money to come back after he saw that success in Mexico, and maybe it was a different time, I don't know. But man, it's a real bummer because when we go back and watch not only his stuff in the Mexican territories, but also on the telenovela, which I forget do we have the
Yeah, I have on his Wikipedia page. They have his filmography. Apparently, he was in And One Street Ball, the video game, as well.
What?
He's a collegiate basketball player.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm trying to. What's the name? What was the name of his?
There was Sábado Gigante, where he portrayed himself.
That's he was a guest on. That was a talk show. Sábado Gigante was a talk show. I mean, Big Saturday. It was either Mi Corazón es Tuyo or Porque el Amor Manda.
Gotcha.
I don't know which one was which, but in any event, wildly charismatic guy. Learned Espanol to go do that soap opera. Seems like he had a terrific life, though. I doubt, maybe he doesn't have any regrets, but the WWE sure should because he was pretty awesome.
You got that right. He was awesome.
Right. Let's move on to the next one. Number 9. Rusev Day.
Hey,
Let's talk about Rusev, man.
Hey, buddy. So it seemed like he was poised for mega stardom. He was in that Royal Rumble early, while he was still in developmental. Mm-hmm, when he was Alexander Rusev.
They liked Rusev, yeah.
They liked Rusev a lot. He got brought up, and pretty quickly he won the U.S. title. He was in a feud with John Cena.
Yeah, right.
He drove out of a tank at WrestleMania 31.
That he did, yeah.
He beat John Cena in the rematch.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Later lost to Cena again, I believe.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And it seemed to all fall apart when they decided it was a great idea to break up Rusev and Lana.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And I don't know, the timing was kind of around the same time where they announced their engagement, or it was leaked to TMZ, or whatever the case may be. And, it seemed like, for whatever reason, they weren't into that and decided, all right, Lana, you're gonna be with Dolph Ziggler now. And that storyline was horrible. Yeah. Horrible. There were some horrible segments. The only thing that saved those segments at time, the only person, who saved those segments at time was Rusev. Dog Ziggler? Come on.
That was pretty funny stuff. Daniel Monet, who was Summer Rae, recently gave an interview, I think, to Chris Van Vliet. and she reiterated how furious Vince McMahon was when the TMZ story got out there, because in his estimation, they had dedicated. And so I understand. I get where they're coming from. When you're WWE and you invest so much time and effort and money, I guess, into a story that, yes, I know that we all understand they're entertainers, they are actors portraying characters, but Vince, being old school, you gotta question the wisdom of them posting a picture on TMZ with the ring and everything when they're in the middle of a career, a storyline that really was designed to kick their careers, because those segments were doing really, really killer ratings.
Yeah, and they were not good.
And these segments, so I don't know, just speaking for myself, if I'm in that situation, I'd probably be like, Lacey, I don't know if we should really go to TMZ about this, or I don't know if we should really be showing pictures of us doing that. Let's just keep it on the down low for now, because this money train is coming in here. So I can see it from that perspective. But dude, even beyond that, the Rusev Day chants.
That was later on.
Later on.
Yeah.
When it was him and Lana and Aiden English, they were over huge.
Massive.
Their chemistry was so good. And I mean, look, Rusev and Lana's chemistry was off the charts back then. I wouldn't mind seeing CJ and AEW to revisit that chemistry, because he refers to her all the time. But the chemistry there and how much the crowd really loved that trio. I mean, it echoes to me these days what they're doing with Alpha Academy, but there's an acknowledgement that the crowd is really behind the chemistry of Alpha Academy. And it was the same for Rusev Day, but evidently Vince believed it was simply they liked singing Rusev Day and they weren't into the act. And I don't know that that's ever been the case with anybody. I don't know. I mean, I know the same went maybe for Shawn Spears in the 10 thing.
Well, I think that was the fear with Daniel Bryan and the yes chance, was that, is he over or is yes over?
I always, for some reason, I think Vince McMahon always liked Daniel Bryan, and maybe there was that concern, but they all had to be vindicated on that one, because clearly Daniel Bryan was just, everybody loved him.
Yes.
The Rusev Day thing, I don't think if people weren't into Rusev Day, if they weren't into the faction, nobody'd be chanting that shit.
Nope.
I firmly believe that. So yeah, man.
I mean, even go back to the Ty Dillinger, Shawn Spears thing. That's the situation where in NXT he was over.
Yeah,
for the NXT crowd, he was over.
For the NXT crowd, yeah.
There ever seemed like there was an opportunity there potentially for him. Not to say they should have done it, but there is a story they could have told of him beating Bob Roode for that NXT title if they wanted to pursue that. They didn't.
I'm gonna do my De Niro impression for that one. Anyways, getting back to Rusev again, you can look at what he did afterwards. And I know for you especially, the Miro character is one of your favorites. That
Redeemer character is one of the most interesting characters in all of wrestling. The dimension, the complexity of the Miro character, I find endlessly fascinating.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've only seen the tip of the iceberg with what he could do with it. That's the thing. It's like there hasn't been a sustained story with him, especially since he lost the TNT title in AEW.
Yeah.
Where they really get into who is Miro without that belt.
Yeah, absolutely. Another name that we could put on this list that it's not even in the honorables, and I just thought about it because I'm thinking of people who went to WWE. I'm sorry, who went to AEW from WWE that dropped the ball on. And they did drop the ball with them. But Brody Lee, Luke Harper. And unfortunately, we didn't get to see the full width and breadth of what he could do because unfortunately he passed away. But watching him develop that Brody Lee character in AEW, it's like, oh my God, what have you guys done? Like WWE, you had this. Like we could have had this as part of the Orton Wyatt feud. We could have had this iteration of Luke Harper. That would have been amazing.
It would have been amazing. It would have been absolutely amazing. I know.
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah. So anyways, let's go ahead and move on to number 8.
Ahmed
Johnson.
remember when he came into WWE, he was like immediately like super popular.
Oh yeah.
You know, he was doing dives of the top rope. His finisher was cool.
Dude, he looked like $1 million. He looked like a megastar.
He did.
I remember he was one of the first guys that stood out to me because I started watching right at the tail end of his time in WWE, and he stood out above everybody else because of his size. And I always wondered to myself, why wasn't this guy a world champion?
So here's the deal. Maybe this could have something to do with it. So he debuted in late 95, October 95. And part of his debut involved being in a post-match brawl and slamming Yokozuna. And then by King of the Ring in 96, he was Intercontinental Champion. So the summer of 96, he's got that IC belt. He beats Goldust for it.
That's huge, yeah.
And so after SummerSlam, he's supposed to have a WF title match against Shawn Michaels. Because they had been tagging quite a bit leading up to SummerSlam.
Yeah, right.
But I guess at some point he was diagnosed with some sort of kidney issue.
Oh.
And so they had to cancel the title match. And he was off TV for 4 months. And then rather than get right back into any sort of thing with Shawn Michaels, because 4 months would have been December. So that was when Shawn was feuding with Sid.
Oh, okay.
Because he got the belt back from Sid at Rumble 97. They had him feud with Farouk, which is something that already kind of started before he had to be taken off TV because of the kidney thing. And it just, like, he was feuding with Farouk for a while. They turned him heel in June of 97. And he was done with the company by February 98.
Yeah, and I know
so he's there less than 2 years.
And I know he, like, you know, unfortunately, he did go to WCW, and, you know, he couldn't recapture that same, you know, what he had going for him in WWE. So yeah, I remember this. So this was about a month ago. And he gave an interview here to Wrestling Then and Now. And he said there was a reason why he chose to walk away from WWE. He says, according to Johnson, there were plans for the faction known as the Truth Commission, which was already a problematic faction, to hang him from a rope. He says his sister was also terminally ill at the time, and he didn't want that to be what everybody remembered him for. And that just sort of speaks to just the god-awful creative that WWE, Vince McMahon would come up with for people, you know, just going to, like, sort of the sickest depths of, like, why would you ever put that on your television? You know? Like, that's not, it's pro wrestling. You're not, you know, you're not telling some, you know, historical drama, you know, from back in the day. This is WWE. Like, why would you ever go there? Like, I don't know. That is absolutely mind-boggling, and incredibly disappointing.
Yes.
He says, I had a sister that had gotten very, very sick, and she was on her deathbed. I had to make a decision that night. She said all she wanted to see me do was win, and she watched WWF religiously. So they had a setup where I was going to go out with a Truth Commission, and they were going to hang me from a rope. I couldn't do that, so I went to Vince. I talked to Vince. We didn't see eye to eye on it, and I bailed. He says I had a lot of little black kids looking up to me, and all the little white kids looking up to me, and I couldn't do it. He says it wasn't anything against the Truth Commission. It wasn't their fault. It was something that some dumbass agent thought of, and yeah, no, I mean you cannot blame the guy for that.
Not at all,
because that's absolutely horrible.
It is.
And again, you know, it just speaks to WWE could have had a monster on their hands. They could have had something. And what's funny too is that, like, I don't remember a ton of his promos, but recently on Twitter, people have been bringing up, like, these promos between him and Ron Simmons and Farouk that sort of took place on, like, Bite This or whatever the studio show was they had, where, like, Ron Simmons was calling in. And I swear, man, like, in terms of sounding like a genuine argument, like a genuine beef with somebody, it came across as fucking real.
Yeah.
And it's like, why couldn't you have taken the essence of that and used that kind of stuff to build? Because it just felt very genuine. And, you know, you could tell from his look what he brought to the table. And you know, and they wasted it because they wanted to do some you know, some racist bullshit.
Yeah, it's disappointing, man. It's disappointing.
Absolutely.
Really disappointing.
Before we move on to the next one, and here's a little spoiler for you. A little bit later on, we could talk about Lex Luger. Larson, you excited about that?
Very.
Anyways, let's go ahead and pay some bills.
Let's do it. Let's take a quick break here, friendos. This episode of Going In Raw is sponsored by BetterHelp. Steve, I know you know this, but for many of us, there are times in our lives where we may feel we're at a bit of a crossroads, uncertain about where we're going in life. And for me, I know I've talked to you about this and talked to you about it on the show. That happened in my mid-20s when I started feeling really overwhelmed by life and developed pretty severe anxiety. It got to the point where I realized that I had to go to therapy to find a way forward. Therapy helped me learn the tools I needed to better cope with my anxiety and set me on a path to hopefully become a better Larson.
And if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. BetterHelp is entirely online and is designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your schedule. And all you got to do to get started is fill out a brief online questionnaire. And you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/raw today to get 10% off your first month.
That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/raw.
All right, let's move on to number 7.
7.
Gail Kim.
I mean, you see what she accomplished in WWE versus what she accomplished in Impact.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Impact, one of the, you could make the case, I think, very easily that she's the greatest knockout champion in the history of Impact Wrestling.
And not just that, maybe even more importantly, what she's done behind the scenes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you could make the case that she's one of the greatest female wrestlers, period.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I was shocked because I was watching in 2004, and when she debuted, she was one of those wrestlers where I was like, oh, shit, they're going to have wrestlers in the women's division.
I remember the vignettes they ran before her debut.
They're very like Matrixy, kind of stuff. And it was like, okay, cool. Like they really built her up as like, okay, she's legit. And in fact, in her debut match, I think it was like a battle royal or something. She ended up winning the women's title. And to me as a fan back in the day, I just remember thinking, okay, this is cool. They're going to start doing with the women's division what they do with the men's division. Because before that, and we're going to talk about this in entry a little bit later.
Yes.
It really wasn't. I mean, there was Lita, who again, when Lita showed up with S.A. Rio, whatever. It was like, oh, whoa, they have somebody who really can do cool stuff in the ring. Is this what they're going to start doing? And you got a hint of that. I mean, you got like Jazz was there and Victoria was there.
Jacqueline was there.
Jacqueline was there. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so they had the ingredients for it, but I feel like they never really, I mean, Chyna just sort of cleaned everybody out and was basically in the men's division at a certain point, and won the Intercontinental Championship. But in terms of like the women's division by 2004, I was like, okay, well, there's not a whole lot going on here in terms of what they're focusing on. And Gail Kim looked like she was going to be a step in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so you mentioned winning that Battle Royal, her debut match in June of 2003. And then by November of 2004, she was released.
Yeah.
As a cost-cutting measure.
And apparently she was pretty shocked by this. Apparently she was supposed to have a heel turn. And like they did, I think, like a promo or pre-tape vignette the day before. And the next day she was released and she was like, what the hell? Like you were just getting started on me.
Yeah. So then after no compete clause expired, she went over to TNA Impact Wrestling, was there for a few years until 2008. She came back to WWE, was there for 3 more years. And her last match, it's an interesting kind of incident or time when things have come full circle. Her debut in WWE was a Battle Royal, and her last match in WWE was a Battle Royal where she eliminated herself because she was fed up with the bullshit.
She had also said in an interview that it's sort of 2 things. They had told her, be eliminated in the first minute.
Yeah.
And so I think it's Brie Bella. I just watched it before we went live. Brie Bella walks up to her, throws a punch. Gail Kim completely ignores it, walks away. And then she just sort of like tosses herself out. She eliminates herself, probably because she's like, yeah, what does it matter anymore?
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny too because to hear Michael Cole and go, oh, apparently we've got another elimination. Gail Kim's been eliminated, but they don't like go to replay or anything. Well, you could see it's hilarious.
That's funny. So she had to sit out till her contract had expired, then went back to Impact, and then over the next 7 or so years, just was an absolute cornerstone of Impact Wrestling.
Yeah, and that goes from like I said, behind the scenes as well. She's
today, she's one of the. I think she books the women's division stuff.
I think she does, yeah, and I think she's been doing that for a while. And then there's other more grotesque, salacious stories that we've heard behind the scenes of how they would treat her, and it just seemed like a dog shit place to work.
Yes,
for certain people, they had it's bizarre to me that they would put so much behind a person, debut them in such a way, see clear as day that she had everything you want.
Yeah.
And then you just treat them that way.
There's that story, and this just goes to investing a lot and not doing anything.
Yeah.
That story that Pritchard told on the podcast, where I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was some reel or something. They got the team that did the Sledgehammer video.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Put together. They spent like $200,000 on this thing.
Yeah.
They show it to Vince. Vince pulls the tape out of the VCR and puts it down the toilet and like pees on it, starts stomping on it and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like that's $200,000 literally down the toilet.
Right. Yeah.
And to think of the number of times where WWE has invested money and creative energy in pushing talent, and then for Vince just to say, nope, we're not doing it anymore. It boggles the mind.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It talks to how he just, it's up to his, for the longest time, it was just up to his whims and how fickle he was.
Yeah. And, again, you have to look and wonder what, if he had taken everything seriously and didn't play out his weird fetishes and gripes on camera and didn't rib people on camera and didn't punish people on camera. Wrestling could be even bigger now than it ever was.
I know.
It's weird. It's weird.
It is weird how for in a lot of respects Vince was successful despite himself.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to the next one. Number 6. Damien Sandow, the intellectual savior of the mass. There's actually 2 times when Damien Sandow really got himself over with the crowd. One time he really got himself over the crowd. But, WWE loves these characters who, when he originally was the intellectual savior of the masses, it was the most, and I say this in a good way, in a complimentary way, the most sports entertainment, the perfect sports entertainment. This guy knew his character.
Yes.
What's it? Aaron Stevens. Is that his real name?
Yep.
Aaron Stevens. I think?
That's the name he used after. No, his name is Aaron Stephen Haddad.
Oh, okay. You could tell a smart guy,
yes.
Quick and clever, like Jericho quick. Jericho's always been a smart guy, and that's how he's been able to stick around for so long. And it's kind of surprising to me that Damien Sandow I wonder if he would have benefited from 2 prominent companies at the same time. If he was in WCW and got himself over like Jericho, WWE would have loved him because it's hey, come on over here.
Exactly.
And he seems like that character seems like such a Vince thing, like a Vince friendly thing.
I know, man.
And and he had that Money in the Bank, the attaché case, which was leather bound, and they had him win that.
Great.
I'm sorry, but that guy had world champion written all over him, and I don't know what the deal was, and I don't know if he's ever spoke on it. But man, that he had everything, and then they stopped doing that, and then again when he was the bodyguard for the Miz Dow, he was so over, and then they killed it again.
Yep. I mean, it's one. It seems like with the Money in the Bank, it might have been one of those situations, and I haven't heard anything to this effect. But we've heard it a few times where Vince puts the briefcase on somebody that instantly, seemingly in his mind, regrets it because Sandow gets the briefcase and he goes 1-12.
Yeah,
in his matches following that, and then gets absolutely destroyed and humiliated by Cena when he tries to cash in. Cena beat him with one arm.
Yeah. That was stupid. It was really stupid.
It was really, really stupid. And yeah, they give him a crap gimmick of being Miz's bodyguard and impersonates him. And he gets that over because he's so damn good at it, because he's clever and he's smart about how he does it.
And the way he played to the crowd with that, getting everybody's sympathy on him and wanting to see him, that could have been a pay-per-view match. That could have been, I mean, they probably did a thing. But, man, like, for them not to use The Miz, who's great. The Miz is great to use to get other people over. For them not to use him to get him to the next level. But then, because then he ended up with Curtis Axel in the Mega Powers.
Oh, he was the Macho Mizdow or whatever. Macho, yeah, something like that.
And then it's like, why are you, like, that's stupid. That was, why are you doing that? Like, nobody cares about that. That's not serious. Yeah, but that the Damien Sandow, the intellectual savior, what a great name. What a great gimmick. That he really did have it. And there were elements, there were flashes of what he could bring to the table in Impact. He was doing like a Liberace thing with Rockstar Spud. But, that only went so far. I just think that guy was probably so well suited for what WWE did. And then WWE just unfortunately, dropped the ball with him several times. And, he didn't have the same maybe structure or creative, backing anywhere else. But there was some good stuff there in Impact that he did.
I got this quote here from PW Insider's Mike Johnson about Sandow. Says, I think it's just a case of someone in the company seeing Sandow as a comedy guy and nothing more. The audience tried to tell them that they wanted to see him in a better role, but were ignored.
Yeah.
Happened to him twice.
Yeah, that's an absolute drag. It really is.
It really is.
All right, let's move on to number 5.
5.
Samoa Joe. Boy, this guy's like an all-timer.
You got that right.
How do you have like maybe the best promo in the history of the business?
I know. And I understand injuries maybe got in the way of if they had something planned for him. Of course, he suffered that horrible concussion while filming a commercial.
A terrible. Those commercials were so ugly too.
Yeah, they were bad. And so he was relegated to doing commentary for a while, and then was ultimately released. Got brought back, was released again.
Yeah.
And in NXT, he was doing awesome work when he was there. He had an awesome feud with Nakamura and an awesome feud with Balor.
Yeah.
The stuff that he was doing there, especially when they were hyping up Dan Matha, only for Samoa Joe to squash him in under a minute.
Yeah.
Yelling out the window of a Jeep. Regal get better security.
It was great.
There was so much amazing stuff. And he had some really good matches, and some awesome segments where if he had beat Brock Lesnar either in their one-on-one bout or the SummerSlam 2017 four-way, it made all the sense. The crowd would have erupted.
Yeah.
Because he was doing amazing work. That segment he did with Heyman where he backs him to the corner, talks about he's going to choke him out and put him to sleep. That's movie quality stuff.
It is. It really is. Like they could have, they absolutely could have and should have. And, and the long game is right now he's working matches in AEW as the television champion. He's heading to Wembley to fight CM Punk. He can still go. And the fact that they didn't, when he was injured from that stupid commercial, that they didn't make it a priority to bring him back in a major way. I mean, dude, his promos on Jeff Hardy, on Brock, on Heyman, those things were the stuff of legend. They really had something with him. And then as soon as he gets concussed, and then there's that weird power struggle between Triple H and Vince where Triple H brought him right back. And then Vince, they had him like recruiting people. They had him doing behind the scenes stuff. Man, it was an absolute drag to see what they eventually did with Samoa Joe, because he could have been the top. He could have been the top guy in the WWE. He really could have been.
Absolutely. I mean, in terms of a character that comes off as absolutely legitimate.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And his style in the ring backs that up.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people, even in 2016, 2017 at WWE at the time that you could put toe-to-toe with Brock Lesnar and think, oh, this person has a chance.
True, yeah.
Samoa Joe is one of them. And if he had choked out Brock Lesnar, in the middle of the ring to win the title.
Yeah.
No one would argue about it. No one would quibble.
Yeah.
People would be enthusiastic, over the moon, elated.
Yeah.
That's Samoa Joe as a champion.
Yeah.
Because it would have been a long road for him to get to that point.
Yeah. I wonder, you got to wonder if any of that, and this is pure speculation, especially at that time, like 2017 or so, Brock Lesnar was so picky about who he'd want to put over. It was very few and far between. I mean, you see how he treated a guy like Dean Ambrose.
Yeah.
I wonder if maybe there was some pushback from Lesnar on any of that. I remember there was that one promo where Brock, like, I don't know, he got Samoa Joe got in Brock's face and said, you know, if you eyeball me, I'm going to, I forget what it was.
Yeah.
Brock looked legitimately annoyed that Samoa Joe came at him like that. And I was like, was that not part of the plan? Like, was that not part of the promo? Because it was an awesome moment. Because, like, oh my God, this guy's stepping up. He's not afraid at all.
Is that what he said to Brock? Lesnar. I'll put your simple ass to sleep.
Yes, that's the one. Yeah. That's the one. And I'm like, was he not supposed to say that? Did Brock not expect that? Because Brock's reaction seemed legitimately.
But that's why the fans would have got behind him, because who in WWE is going to get in Brock's face and tell him, I'm going to put you to sleep?
I know. How are you
no one else would do that.
How are you not Vince McMahon? And you say, hey, he's going to put you to sleep. Because they had a match and he lost.
Yeah, Great Balls of Fire, yeah.
Yeah. But no, I don't know. Like, the fact that he's in AEW now, still having banger matches, he could have been doing that in WWE.
Yeah. He could be world champion WWE easily.
Absolutely.
Easily.
Absolutely. Let's move on to number 4.
For
the total package, Lex Luger. There's a storm coming in his name.
So basically he was a champion because he got bored on the bus and was away from his family.
Man, we on our Thursday show, the blow off over there on the Twitch.
Yes.
We watched a bunch of Lex Luger, Lex Express stuff because we're trying to wrap our heads. I know you watched the biography thing.
Yeah.
And we're trying to wrap our heads around. So you got this guy. You want him to be the next Hogan, or at least the successor in some way.
Mm-hmm.
You toss a bunch of red, white, and blue on him. He's got the look. We know in '89 in WCW, I guess it was probably Crockett's territory then. He could cut killer promos. Like Luger could actually cut killer promos at one time. And the crowd was firmly behind him.
Mm-hmm.
So you bring him in as a narcissist. It's crap. You rebrand him. You have this great moment on, what was the USS Intrepid?
Correct. On 4th of July, no less.
On the 4th of July. He body slams Yokozuna because nobody else could.
Mm-hmm.
People love him, right? They go crazy for the guy. And then at SummerSlam, you don't see it, so you don't have him beat Yokozuna. Instead, he beats him by count out, and then everybody comes out and they celebrate as if he's the guy.
Yeah.
And it's all because they decided to do a bus tour which was not a requirement of any other champion before him.
Not that I recall, no.
You put him on a bus, whereas a fitness guy, like a pure fitness guy, he doesn't have immediate access to his culinary needs.
Yep.
Grilled chicken and stuff.
Yeah.
Nor does he have access 24/7, which he probably prefers, to like a proper gym.
Yes.
Bored out of his mind going from city to city. And he expresses that when he gets, oh man, I'm just happy to get off that bus. And there it is. He's not happy to be trapped on a fucking bus, and therefore he doesn't have what it takes to be WWF champion, Larson.
Make it make sense, Steve.
I can't.
I know I can't either. I mean, forbid that he's human,
Yeah.
Forbid.
Yeah.
That he gets bored on a bus, and yes, he could appreciate the opportunity to be out there and get a chance to get a push and maybe be the world champion. But he's human.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
People get bored.
Yeah.
The monotony of that over a month and a half, however long it was, can wear on a person.
Right. Right.
No matter if it seems like it's leading to a great opportunity, and like apparently they had him show up at some events with the title belt to see how the crowd would respond.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I wonder part of it too, if the SummerSlam bit would have come off better if Yokozuna had gone like a year and a half undefeated or something like that, because literally just the previous WrestleMania 9, Hogan beat him, Yokozuna.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, he didn't. Yeah, he only won the title like a month and a half prior
at King of the Ring '93. Yeah,
which was like the lowest attended pay-per-view they had to that point. It was like 5,000 people.
So if it was a situation where Yokozuna's undefeated for a year and a half or something like that, and Luger beats him by countout, but he won.
Yeah,
that's something. You know. Yeah. Maybe it would have felt like less like a consolation what he got, and felt like more of an accomplishment. And then use that for as you have the body slam on the Intrepid, you have the count out win at SummerSlam. You don't go through all the pageantry like he actually won the title, but you make it feel like, oh, he beat him. Sort of like Jey Uso is the first person to pin Roman Reigns in 3 years.
Yeah, right.
Like I won the title, but it feels like an accomplishment, you know, that he pinned him. And then you still, if you're going to wait till Mania to really have Luger's coronation, at that point you have 8 months left.
Yeah.
Really explore what you could do with the Lex Luger character, and if he's going to be the guy to be the guy. And maybe at that point they was like, okay, we don't really want, you know, Hulk Hogan 2.0 to be the face of our company. I don't know. But like in the biography, there was this bit where, and it's a rare instance seemingly where Vince is being pretty sympathetic in terms of how he's directing these packages, because apparently there's a bit, and I think is when Luger is on the road a bunch, and he's not getting his lines right. And you'd expect Vince, God damn it, pal, and he just goes up to Luger and it's like, hey, take your time, don't rush. You know, he's trying to give him some direction to lead him in the right direction rather than just berate him for not getting it right. And you know, maybe it's stuff like that they want someone who's automatic. I don't know. No,
that could be. I mean, that's a good point. You know, it can't all be the Lex Express thing. There could be an element of maybe because here's the thing. Fast forward, like 4 years, and I mean, it was like for a week, but he beat Hogan on Nitro for the title. And the crowd was fucking electric. The crowd was electric for SummerSlam, but the crowd was electric for him. Yeah. And maybe he just needed to understand, who is this Lex Luger? Like, what is this that I'm doing? Yeah. Why am I America? You know?
Yeah.
Like, why? What's the point of me being on a bus? And maybe he just needed to, like, you know, get a handle on that. Or maybe Vince just wasn't his thing. Maybe Lex just thrived in a situation where, you know, the manager's a guy who could get shoved in a closet and it's not really a big deal. And I'm friends with Sting, and Sting knows people. And so maybe he just thrived, and Hogan was willing to put him over. Maybe he just thrived in that environment more than like the super structure of Vince McMahon. I don't know. But maybe you're right about that. It's like, you know, maybe Vince just sensed, okay, this guy's heart isn't really 1,000% into it. And if it was, I feel like he'd be getting it like this. He would know everything. So maybe there's something to be said about that. But yeah, that SummerSlam shit was weak sauce, man.
It was. It really was.
And then I don't know. Let's WrestleMania 10, where so they both win the Rumble. Him and Bret Hart. They go in there. Bret has a match against Owen. And Yoko kicks off against Lex Luger. Lex Luger loses that match. And I mean, that was it for him at that point.
Yeah, that was it. He turns heel, I think, not too long after that.
Yeah. Like, is it because Vince just knew Bret so well? Is that why? And maybe he wanted to make up for, I mean, was that a better long-term story after what happened to Bret at 9 to have him go in and beat that guy at 10?
Yeah, I don't know.
Is it like, okay, well, I know, Bret, you're going to be around for a while. You know, I'm going to start building around you and Shawn.
Yeah, could be. Maybe by that point, I think, you know, according to Pritchard, you know, Bret was getting huge reactions whenever they went overseas, when they went to Europe, you know, for example, and he was garnering himself a massive fan base worldwide. And maybe they decided to go, you know, rather than having your all-American hero, quote unquote, with Lex Luger, hey, let's run with somebody who has a larger appeal worldwide.
That could be. Yeah, that could be.
You know, they're trying to grow their business. So maybe I was wrong. Luger didn't turn heel after that.
Wasn't it like he didn't do much after that though, did he?
No, he feuded with Tatanka, formed a tag team with Bulldog. That's kind of it.
Okay, yeah. All right. And then, yeah, because it would have been, well, September of 95 is when, isn't September 95 when Nitro, no, was it? It wasn't.
Yeah, it was September. It was early September 95. Yeah.
Okay. The Nitro started. Okay.
Because his last match in WWE was September 3rd of 95.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, and then they had Bob Backlund beat Bret Hart. Anyways, let's move on.
That was just to get the belt on Diesel.
Number 3.
3.
The women's division until like 2015, because evidently it was, I think, a Charlotte Natalia NXT match. I think that Vince saw.
That's the story. Yep.
And was like, God damn it, what are we doing? So we talked about this with Gail Kim a little bit, and I did a little bit of research here, Larson.
Oh, you got some stats and numbers there?
So the grandest stage of them all,
yeah.
WrestleMania, is probably a decent litmus test or a decent thing to look at through the years, to look at how well the women's division was treated over the past 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 years, right? Preceding 2015.
Yes. He was talking from 2005 to 2014 or so. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So, at WrestleMania 30, they had one Battle Royal.
Mm-hmm.
At WrestleMania 29, no women's matches. WrestleMania 28, they had a tag team match that was sort of a celebrity thing involving Maria Menounos.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. 27, they had that Jersey Shore celebrity match.
Yeah.
It's the only women on the card. 26, they did, it was like a 10-man tag match for the Divas. Just 5-on-5. One match. 25, WrestleMania 25 was when Santina Marella won the Divas Battle Royal. 24, they did a Playboy match of some sort.
Oh, gosh.
23, there was one match, but it lasted 3 minutes and 40 seconds. At 22, there were 2 matches. One was a 9-minute match. I think it was, it was Mickie James versus Trish Stratus. So a real feud. They actually had a real feud.
Yeah.
They also had a Playboy pillow match. WrestleMania 21, one match that went 4 minutes. And at WrestleMania 20, we had a Playboy evening gown match and Victoria versus Molly Holly, which went less than 5 minutes.
Oh, my gosh. Really?
Yep.
Victoria and Molly Holly are great.
I know. So that is pre-2015 when Charlotte, Becky, Paige, all them came.
Sasha, Bayley.
Yeah, right.
AJ got called up earlier than that. But
right.
2014, Mania 31, you had AJ and Paige teaming up against the Bella Twins.
Right, yeah. And at that point, with AJ Lee and then with Paige, you really started to get a sense of, okay, they might actually start taking this stuff seriously. Mm-hmm. And then once Charlotte, Becky, Bayley, and Sasha showed up, it was like, okay, they are. This is real now.
Exactly,
and obviously we are where we are now.
You look back at some of the talent that was put in these 4 to 5 minute Mania matches, and it really makes you scratch your head because a lot of them could really work.
They could.
Mickie James, great. Gail Kim, Beth Phoenix,
really great.
You mentioned Molly Holly, Victoria, Jazz, Jacqueline, going back yet further even, Lita, There was a lot of really, really, really good women's wrestlers on the roster that were rarely utilized.
And to hear so many of the stories from the women now that were there during the Divas era, it's not for lack of wanting to do more.
Absolutely.
They were just given this, and it's like, okay, go out there and, get in some lingerie for 2 minutes, and that's your WrestleMania match. And the fact that it took until 2015, really, or so, for Vince McMahon to be like, oh, man, this is like an entire demographic, like 50% of the population that we're really doing a disservice to. And I mean, that's just, it's mind boggling. It's
it
like,
really is.
Instead we're going to do things like bark like a dog, or how Lita was treated on her way out. Or we're going to have Gail Kim be Daniel Bryan's girlfriend. Like it was all just that shit. Or what was her name? Eve Torres be John Cena's love interest, and Zack Ryder would be sad about it. Yeah.
Yep.
it's just and again, it's the kind of thing where that they would have absolutely killed to get more, and they just did. They had their idea for what they wanted. It was basically just, well, this is the sex,
the salacious stuff is what they were focusing on because they thought that was what was going to sell.
The sex appeal. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
yeah, big old ball drop there for decades.
Massive.
I mean, you can go back to like when like Fabulous Moolah brought her title at WWF, and she was just sort of like, yeah, I've had this title for like 50 years already, and I'm just going to have this title. And Vince was cool with all that shit because she owned it. Anyways, and hey, look, I'll be honest, it's not like, it's funny because when I look back at like WCW, that was like worse, It was. It's like, at least Vince through the years, like there were periods of time when like he'd have some banger ass matches in WWF, like Medusa or whoever. But then you look at WCW and it's like, they didn't do shit. They were the ones who brought 3 hours to wrestling with Nitro.
Yeah.
They didn't really do shit either.
No, they didn't do anything. No, it was seemingly, at least within the last 15 years or so, it was Impact.
Mm-hmm. It was, yeah.
Impact.
Largely thanks to Gail Kim and Jeff Jarrett, who was like, they need to be featured as wrestlers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Let's move on to number 2. Roman Reigns' first run. So after the Shield broke up. Oh my gosh.
Where to start? Let me ask you this. I've posed this question to you before, but this seems like an appropriate time to ask again. So we've heard for quite a while that what we see now with Roman Reigns, like that guy was there back in 2015.
Yeah.
Whenever the Shield broke up, 2014, I guess it was. And if not for horrible booking, if he was left to his own devices in terms of doing his promos, he would have gotten himself over. That was kind of like the vibe I've gotten from various people's statements. But I've always kind of wondered, especially based on the success he's had as head of the table, Roman Reigns, if Roman had been the one to break up the Shield, to turn on Seth and Dean.
Yeah.
It's a formula in pro wrestling that seemingly works more often than not. Someone has an incredible heel run. They get over doing really good heel work. It naturally leads to a massive face run.
Yeah.
Vince seemingly with Roman just wanted to skip the heel bit.
Yeah.
And push him as top babyface immediately, rather than giving Roman the opportunity to engender any sort of goodwill as a singles wrestler with the fans. He was incredibly over as member of the Shield.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
But rather than giving him any sort of organic build to main eventer, it was, he's main eventer now. Accept him.
Yeah. The Shield had such a great edge to them. And in 2014, the fans really wanted, they were totally fine with Roman Reigns winning the battle, the Royal Rumble, and then it didn't happen. 2015, at that point, he had been shoved so hard down their throats that they were fucking over him and they booed him.
Yep.
So that's how quickly it fucked him up.
Even with The Rock in the ring.
Even with The Rock in the ring, he looked confused. Could you imagine if Triple H in character, wouldn't it make a lot more sense to take the big dog? Because Roman was the alpha. He really was.
Yeah.
So you hire Roman to be your right-hand man. And because Triple H could still go, guess what? Then you can tell the story of Roman Reigns getting a big head and turning on Triple H. You could still have, and I don't know if the stars would have had to have aligned for us to still get the tribal chief, but theoretically, the ingredients would still be there if they wanted to tell the bloodline story, because that might have been a Heyman thing. Like, hey, I have been part of your family. Because Heyman's been managing the bloodline members for 40 years. And so it's entirely possible that Heyman could have been, look, let's do this bloodline thing. And you can use, Triple H manipulating you to turn on your brothers. You could still tell the story of betrayal just in a different way. And one that is more, it's based on good storytelling as opposed to failed booking, because this is based on failed booking,
It is. Yeah.
And so, no, I think that Roman going bad guy and aligning with Triple H instead of Seth was always going to be fine. You know what I mean? Seth actually didn't need that. Seth was always going to be fine. But yeah, and maybe they thought that Roman was surefire also, but he would too often fade into the background against Dean Ambrose. And another thing, they never divorced him from the Shield, which in retrospect might actually come off as an interesting character beat, that he had such a hard time separating himself right now. Yeah.
Now.
But that's only because back then they were so lacking in creativity. He kept their song. He kept the vest. He kept the presentation. It was like he was just sad guy who didn't have his friends.
Or his own identity after the Shield.
His own identity. Exactly, yeah. And you'd get flashes here and there of what he could be, like when, Sheamus cashed in on him and he got fed up. And he punched Vince and he was throwing Triple H around. It's like, this is what we want. But then he would just go back to being docile Roman Reigns.
He's a pushover.
Yeah, exactly. He was booked as a pushover. Yeah. And at what was it, 34? When Brock fucking murdered him? What good is that supposed to do anybody?
I know.
You can go through the years and just see 32. It was Triple H trying to force Roman into getting himself over while Triple H is crotch chopping him the whole time. It's like, dude, no, everybody loves a crotch chop.
I know. People are going to cheer for that.
Yeah.
It's not your job right now, Triple H.
Yeah. And then
go in and bump for this guy and sell for him and make him look like $1 million. That's what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. And then thank God we had Baron Corbin and dog food. And at that point, Roman Reigns is like, I'm not doing this anymore. We're going to do things the Tribal Chief way. And so we got the Tribal Chief set up, and look at us now.
I know.
Yeah.
But wrestling storyline probably ever.
5 years there, almost 4 or 5 years. It was just that. It was between like that. Those years are kind of defined by Roman Reigns being shoved down our throat as a good guy and Brock Lesnar hogging the title.
Yep.
And a lot of Goldberg in between.
Yeah. Well, it's Roman being shoved down our throat as good guy. Brock being shoved down our throat as top heel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, man. Let's move on to number one. The biggest ball drop in WWE history's gotta be NXT. When you look at that class, the last class before NXT 2.0.
Oh, you're talking like 2017 through 2019, pretty much.
Right now, I'm in the middle, or not in the middle, but I'm about to write a whole script because I want to do a video for this. I want to do like a video essay for you and me and Friendo Club about the lineup they had when we were talking about like WrestleMania 34, 35.
Yeah.
And people would there be debates. What's going to be remember we get this question. What's going to be better this weekend? WrestleMania or TakeOver?
Yeah.
What's going to be the better show? And the reason why is because TakeOver had built such a brilliant brand off of just excellent wrestling and logical storytelling and really good characters. And you had like acts like DIY with Ciampa Gargano. You had Aleister Black. You had the Undisputed Era. And we're just talking about the men's division right now, not even talking about like, Asuka, Ember Moon, Shayna Baszler.
Let me interject real quick. I'm looking at the Survivor Series 2019 card.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
I'm going to go through every NXT competitor in every match.
Yeah.
So Lio Rush for the Cruiserweight.
God, yeah.
Undisputed Era. There's a tag title match.
Yeah.
For the 5-on-5 Survivor Series, 5-on-5 Survivor Series, Team NXT was Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair.
Oh my gosh.
Candice LeRae.
Yeah.
Io Shirai.
Yeah.
And Toni Storm.
Oh wow. Now, admittedly, there's a lot of success that there's a lot of people in that they did not drop the ball on.
No.
In the women's division there.
Yes. Roderick Strong was North American champion at the time. Adam Cole, Pete Dunne. For the men's Survivor Series team, you had Ciampa. You had Damian Priest.
Yeah.
Matt Riddle.
Yeah.
Keith Lee.
Yeah.
Walter.
Yeah.
And then Shayna Baszler.
Yeah. Now, there are definitely some success stories there. There's definitely some people that they did not drop the ball on. But you got to wonder when you have like Undisputed Era, Keith Lee, Lio Rush, who I know has had, ups and downs when it came to his desire to do pro wrestling. But like when you think of Ciampa, Gargano, Ricochet, who I still honestly think hasn't fulfilled his fullest potential.
Oh, I don't think so either.
The guys that ended up in NXT, like Aleister Black, Andrade, Keith Lee. Keith Lee is one of the biggest head scratchers because if you remember his interaction with Roman and Brock Lesnar, it was like, oh my God, these guys, this dude is something special. And then he shows up and they give him Bearcat Keith Lee.
Yeah.
And I will never forget when, and you just knew it was Vince McMahon meddling. He brought up, and I don't know whose idea it was to put Aleister Black and Ricochet together as a tag team, like which might have worked in the very short term, but to bring them up together as that, and then
well, they were put together for the Dusty Classic.
The Dusty Classic, yeah,
and then they brought them up,
brought them up together as a tag team, and then DIY came up as a tag team right when they were feuding again, and the way they came up was so anticlimactic. It was so bad.
It really was.
And so, yeah, you know, at that time, NXT was just firing on all cylinders. And then in 2019, they got that TV deal. And then once they got on TV, let's see if she's going to do it. She can do it.
Well, seemingly once they got on TV and Survivor Series 2019 happened after the TV deal.
Yeah.
It was a pivot point where they could have, if they had approached NXT in terms of bringing over main roster talent on a regular basis like they do now, NXT would have taken off, I feel like.
I think there was a couple things that really, I think that would have been a thing. Because like when Seth Rollins would show up, be like, oh my God, this is so great. I do think, and I might differ from you on this, but one thing that bothered me then and still bothers me to this day is keeping him in that one location. I still maintain that if they would have done a touring situation where it looked a little bit bigger, you have a hot crowd every time, because they're not the same crowd every single week. They're going to start getting weird, because that's what's happening now, is that they have their favorites and they have the people who they're like, oh, we don't want them. And they don't react like a fresh crowd will, because they take it for granted. And sometimes they take over, so to speak. So, and I do think that like presenting them in a larger way just would have helped them a little bit, regardless of whatever the cost would be or whatever. But NXT was such a hot brand that I think that they probably could have pulled it off if they put the right stuff behind it. And it seemed like as soon as AEW happened and it became clear that AEW was doing really what NXT probably should have, making it big budget TV, and signing up all those great names. Of course, NXT was going to lose in the ratings.
Yep.
And Vince McMahon, I personally think, conspiracy theory or no, I think Vince was so offended by that he kicked Triple H out.
Entirely possible.
And then we got NXT 2.0.
Could be.
Anyways,
could be.
Could have had something so much different, but I don't know.
Everything
worked. You said,
a
lot of those names that you just mentioned worked out all right.
Yeah. But you look at, like the takeover the night before, War Games before Survivor Series. You had Swerve in NXT then.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Angel Garza, who they're still not doing anything with.
Yeah, they're still
4 years later.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Killian Dane.
Well, Sanity as a group was a pretty awesome thing too.
Yeah. Like Dijak, they brought him back to NXT, and he's got something.
He does have something, yeah.
He's got something, but still, it's like you look at the talent level in NXT from again like 2016, especially 2019.
Yeah, man,
loaded.
It was stacked. It was
loaded.
Stacked,
Andrade was there,
Yeah.
Just absolutely loaded. And every time, like Bob Roode's call-up was still like the most head-scratching thing.
That was probably up there with one of the worst call-ups ever. Yeah,
it was horrible.
Yeah,
Nakamura's had a pretty decent main roster career for himself. So was Asuka, but Ember Moon, another ball drop, massive
big ball drop. Yeah, absolutely.
Because even when she was in NXT, she was one of the best wrestlers there.
And honestly, dude, it wasn't until Triple H came around that Rhea Ripley really found her fullest potential. I mean, it was shocking. Like as soon as he showed up, it was like, you're the brutalizer. That's what you're gonna do. Yep. You're gonna literally kidnap Dominic Mysterio, and then you're gonna have him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, that I watched somebody put that on Twitter the other day when they were all in Ray's dressing room and she busts in and she steals Dominic Mysterio. Mm-hmm. Oh, that was amazing. That was good stuff. Let's talk about some honorable mentions because we had some other names on here, so we'll speed around these. Shane Douglas, the Dean Douglas.
Yeah, I mean, he had a good career for himself, obviously, at ECW, and you know, if he wasn't saddled with that horrible teacher gimmick in WWE as Dean Douglas, and if he didn't run afoul of the Clique.
Yeah, he seemed to unreasonably run afoul of the Clique. I don't know what the deal with that was. If he carried himself a certain way, didn't shake somebody's hand, whatever he did.
As Scott Hall said, they were talking about it, that he was such a great worker and he got in the ring with them, but he wasn't impressed. Maybe that's all it took.
There had to have been some weird personality thing. You know what I mean? Because it's like if he comes in and he's like, "Oh, Scott Hall, huge fan of your work. You're great. I've heard great things about you." Like if you butter up somebody and then they come back, "Hey Vince, this guy's the real deal." You know what I mean? Like that's how people work, man. Shane Douglas probably came in there. I'm the franchise.
Yeah.
Triple threat.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, he comes in there throwing up triple threat.
Triple threat all
the
over
Clique
the place.
ain't nothing to the triple threat.
The triple threat. And like, who's in this triple threat?
Man, fuck you.
Yeah, I know. Also here, Taz.
Who's in this triple threat?
Taz on his debut beat Kurt Angle.
Oh, that was rad. That was awesome.
That was awesome. And I don't know how much of a role injuries played in him not necessarily achieving the success that he probably could have at WWE. But I'm sure it was somewhat of a factor.
They also started putting him in. There were two things that stand out to me about Taz from back then. Mm-hmm. Number one, they put him in like a janitor's outfit.
They did, yeah.
They put him in. What do you call those? Jumpsuits. They put him in a jumpsuit.
Yeah.
It's like a sleeveless jumpsuit. But number two, during the invasion angle, he was like the butt of Steve Austin's joke during the Steve Austin appearance. He's like, "Why aren't you wearing my shirt?" Taz like, "What am I doing?" Like you just look on his face like, "What am I doing here? I should be fucking choking this guy out if anybody talks to me like that."
I know.
So I don't know. They sort of did him dirty regardless, but maybe it was injuries. I don't know. Vader.
I mean, you look what he did in Japan. You look what he did in WCW.
Yeah.
He was a monster.
He was, but do you wonder if maybe it's because like hitting people hard for reals is only going to get you so far?
Oh yeah, in the world of sports entertainment of WWE, you can't get by on hitting people hard and pretty much exclusively.
Right.
I understand that.
Yeah, he had a cool steam-powered helmet, which was neat.
Yeah, it was all right.
But like, again, running afoul of the Clique, you got that SummerSlam match against HBK. It's like, fucking move.
Yeah. Then Shawn Michaels kicks him in the head.
I like this next name, Rick Rude.
Yeah. I mean, he beat Warrior for the Intercontinental title.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
But he never got past that. I think Hogan was scared of him. I think
that's might right. Be why Hogan was scared of him.
Hogan was scared of him, like legit scared of him.
Yeah.
Now, I think that's probably why Rick Rude never really got up to the main event level.
Yeah.
But in terms of being a captivating character,
oh man, yeah,
a great in-ring worker, I could watch Rick Rude sell atomic drops all day.
Who the hell would like spray paint somebody's wife on their chonies? Yeah, you kind of wonder like what would have happened because he got injured in '94. I think it wasn't '94.
Yeah,
it was '94.
Like yeah, it was that where he got suplexed out in the crowd. Yeah.
I wonder if he would have had like a resurgence if he hadn't got injured. And in fact, before he passed, he was working on getting back to the ring too. I mean, can you imagine his character and the attitude? You don't need Val Venus if you have Rick Rude.
No.
You can rebrand him in the Attitude Era as a pornographer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then of course, Jake the Snake. Now this one always interests me.
This story is something else.
When Vince McMahon was going to push him in a title shot with Hulk Hogan. Was the idea that he was going to win the title? Was that the situation?
I don't think so. I mean, that was the era where Vince was throwing all the heels he could at Hogan just so he could beat them all. But it was, a title program, which is huge money.
Huge, big money. And they're backstage or like gorilla position or something. And what was it like? Was Jake out there and the crowd started chanting DDT?
Well, I think what was happening was Vince was talking to Jake and telling him, like, this is it. This is going to be your moment. Because he goes out there and hits Hogan with a DDT.
Right, yeah.
and they're expecting boos, but instead, as I remember, walks backstage, the crowd is chanting DDT. And Jake, as he walks through the curtain, and Vince beats him, is like, oh, that's it. Done. Not happening now.
Not doing this one again. You're too cool, man. It would have been interesting, man, if Vince had adopted the philosophy of put the title on a bad guy and have Hogan chase him. I have no idea if the landscape would have been so much different. But, like, you know, they did it with DiBiase. They got the title off Hogan using Andre. And then, you know, they did the thing where they took it back off him. But I don't know. Like, there could have been some interesting champ. Like, Piper could have had the title. Jake could have had the title. Rick Rude could have had the, like, they could have had something there.
Yeah.
No, I really could have. Yeah.
I agree.
Anyways, let us know what you guys think are the biggest missed opportunities. What are the biggest ball drops in WWE? Of course, I'm talking about times WWE dropped the ball, not the
I think people
biological
understand. You don't have to get into it. You don't have to get into it.
Process by which in you know the okay. That's going to do it for us. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it. Till next time. We'll see you around.
Goodbye.